Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I continue my conversation with Musa Mabesa, who is the Principal Executive Officer at the GEPF. Musa, a lot's been written and said about the service that your members, pensioners, beneficiaries of the GEPF are getting from the GPAA. There's also mention in the annual report about you trying to improve that. What are the issues and what are the attempts to make it better?
Thanks, Andile, for that question. Maybe before I answer the question, I must just give you context about the relationship with the Government Pensions Administration Agency. So we've outsourced the benefits administration to the GPAA. Core of the GEPF's business is the administration of pensions. So we receive contributions from our members. We invest those through the PIC. But most importantly, it's the administration and payment of benefits to our pensioners and the beneficiaries. We have had challenges, and it's widely reported in the administration of exits, but I must separate the two. Pensioners who are already on pension and their beneficiaries, once they are exited and they start receiving their pensions, they are paid on time every month and there are no issues. Some of the challenges that we have are on exit management, and the challenges are either with the employer some of the times are with ourselves through the GPAA, where our systems are not geared to administer the exits properly, either on time, either because it's paper-based or the system is not fully automated. And some of the issues are either with the member themselves, either they have tax issues, or we have issues with their bank information, or they do not complete their exit documentation completely. So some of the issues are between ourselves, the employer, and the member. So those are the issues that we're trying to address between ourselves, the member, and the employer.
Do you think these issues will always be there to some extent, and therefore kind of the niggly elements will be there, or do you think the majority of the core issues have been or soon to be dealt with?
The majority of the issues will soon be dealt with. The board has started a process to review the operating model. And by operating model, I'm talking about firstly modernizing the systems that the GPAA is using. So going to a digital platform where we interface between ourselves and the employers, allowing the employers to exit a member through a digital platform that will reduce the amount of time it takes to exit a member. The verification process already has been automated. For example, we can verify a member's ID number with Home Affairs that is verified automatically. So digitizing that process will also assist. Verifying a member's years of service between ourselves and the employer also assists. And if we are able to automate those processes and have those checks done prior to a member's exit, will assist us in making sure that that process is fastened. What we are doing with the Minister of Finance, and the board is working with the Minister of Finance in that, is fixing the operating model.
Okay.
How do we make that process efficient? And the board will find ways to sort that out with the Minister of Finance.
Great stuff. While we're talking about the board, one of the things I read you had done recently, about a year ago, is to review your investment mandates. Why did you do that? And why did it become necessary?
So the investment mandate with the PIC was first signed in 2007. So you'd appreciate that it was rather an old document. There were annexures that were added over the years. And when the Party Commission of Inquiry concluded its recommendations in 2020, one of the recommendations in there was that that mandate needed to be reviewed to tighten some of the controls. So the board had already initiated a review process as well to tighten some of the controls in there as it was necessary. So the Party Commission of Inquiry recommendations also said there's a necessary need for a review of the mandate. So the board did review the mandate. We separated listed investments from unlisted investments so that there are clear separations. It's easier for us to monitor the deployment of our mandate with the PIC by having those separate mandates together. So that makes it easier for us to manage the relationship with the PIC.
Speaking of the investment mandates that the PIC would have, many people see the word government in the GEPF's full name. And then when you talk about infrastructure investments, bonds and SOEs, etc., some members may get the feeling, why are we investing in what may seem to be the responsibility of government? Are we an extension of government? And obviously you're a separate fund, but how do you manage that reputational perspective that might say, well, you should only be making sure you look after my pension funds and make sure I retire comfortably, as opposed to you being concerned or being overly concerned by issues of national interest.
So I think maybe the answer to that is broad. The way we invest and how we invest is determined by what we call an asset liability modeling exercise that we conduct. And this is how we try and define what assets we have and what are the liabilities that we have. So that matching that needs to happen is done by our consultants and actuaries who try and assist us to see, based on the liabilities that we have, the complexion of the liabilities that we have, the assets that we have, how are you going to invest those assets to ensure that you meet the liabilities in the long term. That then gives us our strategic asset allocation. In that strategic asset allocation, they then determine that we need to invest in fixed income instruments, which is bonds. And the biggest provider of bonds is government. And the world over, government bonds provide guaranteed returns.
Speaking of bankable projects, it now talks to how you monitor your investments, because the biggest mistake you can make as an investor is taking too long or too short in investment because you're not on top of the detail.
Sure.
How do you, as the GEPF, monitor your investments?
So the GEPF office under the Board of Trustees has an investment unit headed by a head of investment. And in that structure, we have a group of professionals who look at both the listed investments and unlisted investments. But we're also assisted by a consultant as well as a master custodian. And the master custodian at a high level is our book of record, but they also then run reports for us that look at the risk and the compliance. And the compliance aspects on a daily basis, they will tell us the compliance to the mandates that the PIC and other managers are complying to our mandate, and then using those reports on a regular basis, we're able to tell how the PIC and other managers are sticking to the mandate, and we're able to then proactively reach out to the managers and ask them to correct where they're not complying. We have access to our bank accounts on a daily basis, so we can monitor what our bank accounts are doing, the movement in our securities. So that makes us able to proactively engage with our managers and keep engaging with them and get rectification wherever there are issues. So that allows us to be on top of what the managers are doing.
Absolutely. Well, in closing, I'm very interested in finding out your view on the current landscape. The world has just changed so dramatically. I guess it all started in beginning of 2020 with the pandemic. But of late, with the conflict that's happening in Europe, what's happened with inflation, what's happened with higher interest rates, not just locally, but also globally, the world just seems to be in a place of flux. What is your view on the investment risks and opportunities that might be out there for the GEPF?
I think, Andile, the short-term challenges that we are seeing, everyone is seeing globally, are not a worry for the GEPF. We are a long-term investor. We saw in 2008 the global economic crisis. The GEPF did suffer at that time, but we did not see a lot of impact at the time. And that again spoke to the investment strategy that the fund had. And at that time, there was a lot of home bias in our strategic asset allocation. And currently, like I indicated, 10% of our investments are outside South Africa and 90% is in South Africa. That again cushions us from what happens outside South Africa. Some can argue that we are losing out on opportunities globally, but that has always protected us to a certain extent. So we're not worried about what is happening globally in the short term because we're a long-term investor, and it has paid off for us in the long term because we know that South Africa is resilient, the fund is resilient, and our strategy over the long term will pay off. And the diversification in our asset allocation allows us to be cushioned against some of this volatility. So I'm very hopeful about the future of South Africa, the pension fund, and that the global economy will recover.
I am a son of a teacher. She is a daughter of many other teachers. So I grew up in a home of your members.
Yeah.
And I wonder when members, listen to us discuss these things and don't often have an opportunity to interact with the principal executive officer. What is the one thing you could tell members out there to give them the confidence that indeed when they reach retirement age, they've been contributing over many, many years into the fund, their pensions will be there? What's that one thing?
The one thing, we go back to our initial discussion around the funding level. The fund is financially sound. The board is doing a wonderful job, and the PIC, contrary to some of the noise, the PIC is doing a very good job. They are investing responsibly on their behalf. We are also looking after their funds as best as we can, and that is testament in the annual report that we have, which is available on our website, and we'll continue looking out for them, paying their benefits, improving the administration of the administrator, as well as ensuring that we deliver over the long term. So their funds are safe, and we'll continue to look after their funds.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is Musa Mabesa, Principal Executive Officer at the GEPF. Your pensions are safe.